Hello everyone. Today we're going to be looking at Worlds 2020 Planes Day 1. This will be my first video on Worlds 2020 and we'll just be looking at the games that happened for the first day of Worlds. So obviously this is play-ins, so it's not exactly the most stellar games, but if you guys want to find out more about some of the teams that will be joining in the group stages of Worlds, then I would recommend maybe watching some of the bigger games for planes, but this is not really the most interesting or best League of Legends we'll be seeing at Worlds. Um, in saying that, I will tell you guys which games I think are worth a watch if you have time. Um, but I'll also be just putting in timestamps towards each game so that if you don't really care about some of the minor games, you can just go to the game you want to see and then you can listen to what I have to say about that. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, we can just jump straight in. There were 5 games yesterday. Um, most of them were quite either predictable or they were between two wildcard regions, which means that unless you follow wildcard regions, it's not exactly very easy to predict who would have won. But there was some upsets. So let's get into that. So the first game was between Mad Lions, obviously from the LEC, against INTZ, which is a team from Brazil. And this game, I think the majority of people would have predicted Mad Lions to win, and that was the case, as you can see. The next game was between PSG Talon and Rainbow Seven. Now, PSG Talon's a team from the PCS, which is a the region is just below Asia, so around Hong Kong, Macau, uh, the Philippines, there. So it's not a major region. Once again, both these teams are wildcard regions. Rainbow Seven being from Latin America. But this was also a game that the majority of people thought PSG Talon would win. There is one caveat though for this game, and that is that PSG Talon at the moment do not have their full roster. 3 of their players are still in quarantine and are not able to partake in the playing games. So only if they make groups will PSG actually get their real roster of players. But they ended up getting the win as well. And then next game, Legacy versus INTZ. So INTZ playing their second game. Um, in this one, Legacy coming from OCE and INTZ once again from Brazil. This game was pretty difficult to predict and not exactly a clear favorite or anything like that. LGD versus PSG. Now this was probably the game of the day. This was a massive upset, seeing as the LGD are a Chinese team, obviously the best region in the world at the moment, and PSG, like I said earlier, coming in from the PCS, so with 3 sub players as well. The fact that PSG were able to pick up this win is massive, and we'll be getting into that. If you guys aren't really interested in any of the other games, then I would recommend skipping to the LGD PSG game in this video. The next game was probably the most exciting of the day for most regular viewers, as this was a NA team versus EU team. Obviously, Team Liquid coming from NA and Mad Lions with their second game coming from EU. Now, coming into the game, everyone thought that Mad Lions would win. Um, Seeing as just EU has had the better of NA for the majority of league's history. Um, but yeah, Team Liquid did come out with the win. It wasn't too crazy. And yeah, it was a good game. I would recommend watching it. I think it was probably the best game out of all of these. And it wasn't a huge upset or anything, but people did think Mad Lions were gonna win. Okay, now we're gonna get into the more detailed portion of the video. So if you guys aren't really interested in these specific games, then you can click off now. Thank you for watching. Um, but yeah, I also just want to put a disclaimer in that all these stats that you'll see on your screen is from a website that does League of Legends stats for the esports games. I'll be putting a link in the description to that website if you guys want to see more. But yeah, those aren't my stats. So let's get into it. So, Mad Lions versus INTZ. This game, like I said earlier, was super favored towards Mad Lions from the outset. Um, and they did end up winning, as you can see. But the key things you need to look at in this game is that Mad Lions drafted quite a early game proactive draft, which you can see with Pantheon, Jhin, Lucian, Renekton, and somewhat Eve. Um, and Mad were trying to snowball as fast as possible, which they did end up doing, as you can see in the gold graph. It was quite a dominant victory. Ended the game with a almost 9k lead in the gold. But INTZ, they had quite an interesting draft strategy. They elected to give some power picks over towards Mad Lions and tried to counter pick them themselves. And they did have counter pick in top lane and arguably mid lane. And you could see the Urgot, Tay, actually performed quite well. He was quite a standout player for me, besides for one little oopsie that you guys might have seen of him TPing on the spot. It wasn't too bad of a performance from him. He almost managed to carry INTZ, but it ended up just a few dragon fights later. They just ended up losing the game, and Tay couldn't really do much. Envy had a pretty bad game on the Tristana. He had the counter pick into Lucian, and Humanoid won that matchup. So, and he was getting caught all the time. So, not a good look for Envy. Tay played well. I would say the MVP of the game was probably Humanoid. He absorbed a lot of pressure in the early game, and he managed to get some good flanks off. Next game. So, this game, once again, two wildcard regions. PSG with three sub players managed to get the win. Quite a dominant win, in fact. You can see the kills 27 to 8. It's quite a big lead, and obviously ended the game with around 8k lead. So this game, it was quite a tough one for Rainbow Seven because in at about level 4, there was an all-in from Rainbow Seven's bot lane on PSG, and PSG managed to escape with like 100 health on both their bot laners, and Kong Yu on the Echo managed to come in and clean up, and yeah, it was super tough. Both bot lanes sums were blown, um, but unfortunately Rainbow Seven couldn't get any kills off of that, and Kong Yu managed to absolutely smurf and run away with the game on his Echo. You can see his KDA is super impressive. He played very well. Um, and yeah, pretty. If you guys want to watch a carry jungler just pop off on an Echo, then I would recommend watching this game. Otherwise, it's not too good of a game. Uh, it was just super unfortunate that Rainbow Seven just were 100 HP off of turning that around, and maybe we'd see a different game come up. PSG were very good at snowballing, so yeah, cool. Next game. Now, this game was probably the worst game of the day to watch. Absolute scrap fest. very bad mechanical play. Um, yeah, it was quite a bad draft from INTZ. They, as you can see, have predominantly AP on their team, besides some AD damage coming out from the airs and the volley, but both of them are mix, so they do AP and AD. So it was quite easy for Legacy to itemize some MR. You could see with the Maw there, the Spirit Visage, and the Merc Treads. It was just very difficult for Inns to do anything. Once again, Tay managed to stick out and he did quite a bit of work on the Vlad. But otherwise, I would say Tally played very well on the set. He managed to get some good engages and yeah, but the rest of the game was super scrappy, not very good League of Legends. Um, but yeah, I'd say the ace was probably Tay and Tally got the MVP for this one. But yeah, not a very good game. Wouldn't really watch it. Don't bother. Now this is the, like I said earlier, the upset of the day. Uh, we saw LGD, the fourth seed from China, so best region in the world, one of the best teams in the world apparently from the outset. We saw them lose the game to a team with 3 subs. I keep reiterating that. That's a huge deal. And obviously a wildcard team. Now, the problem here for LGD was very much the draft. Um, you might look at the draft and say, well, they have really good power picks on the side of LGD, and they do. The Lilia, Ashe, Lucian are incredibly strong champions at the moment, but PSG Talon just outdrafted them. And that was due to, if you look at the champions on LGD, they have very short range, besides maybe the Ashe. They all need to go in and engage, and the draft from PSG just completely counters that. You have an Ornn for disengage, obviously peeling for his team, and more importantly, the Oriana. You can see she popped off this game. Uniboy absolutely carried his team. Um, Everyone played well on PSG. Once again, Kongyu had a good game on jungle. Super promising player. But Uniboy, he 707 on Ori. He did a lot of work. Um, but yeah, I think LGD, sorry, had just a really bad draft, and they weren't able to snowball hard enough. As you can see in the gold graph, they had a lead, and PSG just outscaled. Obviously, Ornn, Ori, Graves, super strong scaling. And yeah, this is the draft of this game, but Uniboy did have a super strong performance. Okay, last game of the day. This was the game everyone was most excited for, including me. I wanted to see how Team Liquid would shape up against Mad Lions. Um, and I was quite surprised. I think Mad Lions had not a terrible draft. I think that they had the tools to deal with Team Liquid's draft, but individual mistakes from Arome and Shadow just meant they could not get the win. As you can see on Team Liquid's side, they picked the Twitch, and that was their damage dealer, that was their carry. And they were trying to peel for him. Obviously, the Mordekais are coming in to take out either Shadow or Arome from the fight, which means that Twitch can just go ham and fight, ult, and be unleashed, as Rat IRL would say. Um, but yeah, I think Shadow had an awful performance on Eve. He was not able to find the picks onto Twitch, which meant Tactical could just run away with the game. Impact had a super good game. Um, Broxer, he looks like he did quite a bit, I guess, but if you watch the game, Broxah was pretty much non-existent. Um, Shadow out-jungled him this game, but in the team fight, Shadow was not finding the picks necessary. And yeah, obviously Team Liquid played better. I don't think it's a huge draft loss from Mad Lions. It's kind of arguable both ways. But individual performances from Shadow and Arome were just not it. Um, Team Liquid just outplayed them. Uh, yeah, so that's gonna do it for Plains Day 1. Just a few key points about Plains Day 1 is that we can already see some upsets happening between PSG, LGD, and Mad TL, and that's quite exciting as a viewer. Some things I thought I would just reiterate is that Mad Lions are probably were our favorites to get out of Plains. Um, but so far Shadow has looked really bad on the eve, and I think if they want to be good and get out of Plains and do well in groups, they need to make sure that Shadow either picks up his eve level or they need to just stop picking it. Both games, you'll see in the first game they played versus INTZ, he didn't have a very good game. And once again against TL, he didn't. Um, but yeah, I think that's kind of the talking point of the day. Just Shadow not underperforming. And yeah, okay. Well, that's gonna do it for Plains Day 1. Um, if you watched till here, thank you very much. I'd obviously appreciate any likes or subscribes. Um, but that's me. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.